Welcome everyone, nice to see you.
Sorry.
All right. Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Clarkin. I'm one of the leaders of NEST with the Naperville Environment and Sustainability Task Force. We're really happy to welcome you here tonight to celebrate what District 203 is doing with their carbon action plan. I think it's going to be a really, it's just really exciting that we are seeing this kind of progress in Naperville for taking seriously our responsibility to take action on the climate crisis. And so I'm going to be really happy to welcome our speakers tonight. But first, a few next announcements. So, for those of you that don't know us, this is our mission statement. So NEST is really advisors to the city of Naperville on anything related to decarbonization and sustainability. So we advise our city government, and we are a resource for the community, doing community education programs like this, for example. And if you're not involved with us, come speak to me. Can some of the other leaders of NEST raise your hands? Maybe, there we go. All right, speak to any of those nice folks. And just to give you an overview of what our priorities are for this year, many of you know that about 80% of our electricity comes from burning coal. And so our contractor, IMEA, wants us to extend that contract from 2035 to 2055. And so we are working to oppose that extension, which is under consideration by the city of Naperville. But we're not just against things, we're for things. So we want to work with the city on a better plan, a better solution for our next electricity supply. So we have lots of good ideas about that. And we also want the community to have input, to have a say in where your energy comes from, what kind of incentives you get to make your home more energy efficient, that kind of thing. So we want that community engagement, and that's what we're advocating for, as well as a transition to clean energy. We, like our friends in District 203 who created a carbon action plan, we want the same thing for the city of Naperville. So that's another thing that we advocate for. We have building energy efficiency stretch codes that we are trying to get the city as well to adopt. That will make new buildings as energy efficient as possible, ready to charge all those future electric vehicles that we think are coming, ready for solar on the roofs, and so forth. So this stretch code will make our buildings more future ready. They will save building owners, homeowners expenses in the future to retrofit to meet our future electrification and energy efficiency and transportation goals. We also know that the city of Naperville has put out a request for a proposal on a bike and pedestrian plan. And so we are trying to work with them to ensure that that plan that is means that Naperville will be connected and safe for everyone moving around, no matter how they get around Naperville. And of course, we do community education programs like this. So those are kind of what we do on a day-to-day basis. We're a big volunteer organization. We have probably, I don't know, how many active members, like 30, 40, 50 active members. So join us if you have not. Just a few announcements. Next month, we are going to skip our normal community engagement meeting like we do usually third Monday of the month, and we are going on a field trip. And I cannot recommend this enough. I did this field trip. It is so interesting at Blackwell Forest Preserve. We're going to have a tour of the Urban Stream Research Center. You can learn all about freshwater mussels. It's super cool. Our next regular monthly community meeting will be in July on the 21st, and we are going to have a youth presentation on climate justice. Some of you might remember last summer we had a panel of youth speak, and it was really, really inspiring. So put that on your calendars. And then in September, there is a styrofoam recycling event, and we're gonna do a potluck picnic in September too. So we'll keep you posted about that. And just a couple more things real quick. So Nest runs on almost no budget whatsoever, but we do have to pay for Zoom and we have to pay for MailChimp, and that's kind of about it. Sometimes we printing. So if anyone wants to kick in a few bucks to help us offset some of those costs, we would appreciate that. And also, just a little pitch to support youth climate programs. Our students this summer are going to be doing a walkathon. So if you want to contribute to that, there's a QR code up there, or talk to me afterwards. And if you know any young people that want to get involved in climate action this summer, come see me as well. We have a big youth climate action volunteer program during the summer with the nonprofit that I work with, Accelerate Climate Solutions. So feel free to pass that opportunity along to any youth that you know. And with that, I'm going to switch presentations here and welcome our speakers from District 203. We have 2 people from the administration and 2 students. So Chuck Freundt, Melanie Brown, Michael Kim, and Rakshita Ruparel.
Thank you. Thanks, Kathy. Thanks everybody for being here. We are beyond honored and excited to be here tonight. Our carbon action plan was approved just a couple of months ago. So this is, somebody was asking me a little bit earlier, this is technically our first presentation outside of our district, if you will, since that was approved. And what we think we get out of this is the importance of spreading the word about our plan, making, sort of building community awareness, making certain that folks understand that we have a plan and what's in that plan. We'll do some real quick introductions again. Kathy gave some names, but you'll get to know us a little bit through this presentation and kind of why we might be in front of you. Melanie and I are going to, although we're going to do probably quite a bit of the slides, we're really going to defer to our rock stars, which are our students that are here. Well, one is still our student. Another one just graduated. So he's moving on to university this fall. But we want to really walk you through kind of what we've done, why we've done it, what's there, and give you kind of access to how you can learn more if you want to know kind of the nuts and bolts of that presentation. So again, a little bit about, just real briefly, kind of who we are. Melanie Brown is our Director of Buildings and Grounds. She's actually been sort of on board and in her role since the work really formally began in our district around this carbon action plan. So she'll talk to you a little bit about that tonight. Michael Kim was a senior at Naperville Central High School, just graduated. Again, congratulations, Michael. He's going to give you a little sense of really how his involvement in this and how students being involved in this really probably fueled this to the point that we are here today. Rakshita is going to talk. She's kind of finishing up her junior year at Naperville North High School. Melanie and I had the pleasure of meeting her for the first time well back in the fall of this year, when she came and she spoke to our Board of Education as a junior in high school, which, you know, even, we're gonna get some directions here too. Yeah, you made it. You are here. Oh, I'm glad you're here. Glad the directions brought you down here. Rakshita came and spoke to our Board of Education about the importance of this work. And Melanie and I were in the meeting and kind of made some eye contact, and some other of our administrators made eye contact. And I actually followed her out in the hallway after her comments and said, hey, would you like to come work with us? And she and one of the other young ladies that made comment that night actually came and joined our student advisory team, which is really what helped us get to where we are standing here today. My name is Chuck Freundt. I'm an assistant superintendent. I oversee several things in our district, but I'll give you a little bit more thorough background for me, and then they will do the same when they come up and they speak about their parts. I started in this school district actually back in 1991. Well, in Naperville, that is. I went to North Central College. That's how I landed in this community. I was lucky enough to start as a teacher in '95, and I've been in Naperville District 203 my entire career. So the last 30 years, I've been able to kind of see how this community has evolved in that amount of time. Some of you probably have the evolution of this community even maybe prior to my time here. But I've been privileged to be a teacher. I've been a principal in a couple of our schools. I've overseen the elementary level in our school district. And then most recently, I've landed in a role where I get an opportunity to work with Melanie over our buildings and grounds department, some technology pieces. I do a lot of leadership coaching for our principals and assistant principals, which gives me an opportunity to really kind of bring a lot of things together as they're navigating a very complex world today, even more so compared to 5 and 10 and 15 years ago. So I bring kind of a very eclectic sort of background to this work, but it's been a real sort of fun, exciting journey that we've been on, especially over this last year. But this predates even that. So I just want to go back first and just with you think about the last 25 years. So just see if you can put yourself in that time capsule with us. And do you remember driving directions 25 years ago? This didn't exist, did it? You might remember MapQuest, right? You had to print them off and like set them on the seat next to you and hope that you didn't type them in wrong and it led you to the wrong place, or it flew out the window, right? Like that's think about how that's changed in that amount of time. How about listening to your favorite music in the car? 25 years ago, you had to burn a CD to get your favorite music into the car, or listen to the radio, of course, right? iPods didn't debut until a year after that, in 2001, where you could put a lot of music on one little device. And things like Spotify, Amazon Music, and all that stuff, that didn't even come for another 10 years after that. So the way we listen to music has shifted significantly in the last 25. Communication at work. Now, I don't know how many emails do we get in a day? Too many. Who said that? Yes, too many, right? 25 years ago, some workplaces had instant messaging where you could send somebody a little message, but for the most part, I mean, you guys probably don't even realize this. You had to physically get up and walk to somebody's office to talk to them about something. There wasn't that ability to do that sort of electronic messaging in a lot of workplaces. In fact, only 29% of Americans in the year 2000 reported that they actually were online in a typical day. The majority of Americans didn't spend any time online. I don't even know what that number is today, but I bet you the numbers are at least flipped, 92%. How about ordering takeout? Remember what that was like? How was it? Maybe the yellow pages. I remember stacks of menus in the drawer, right? You get all the menus out, okay, what do we want to have? And you couldn't, I mean, sometimes you sort of roll the dice. You didn't necessarily know if it was any good. Maybe you don't even remember where you got that menu from. Yelp didn't exist till 2004. You wouldn't be able to see reviews online to see what do people think about that restaurant. Now you can order right on your device. And how about movies at home? You go to Blockbuster back then. You know what Blockbuster is? It's shut down. It's shut down, right? It's shut down. You could also order DVDs at that time that they would send you in the mail 3 at a time, and they'd let you keep them as long as you wanted, right? I mean, just those changes are small, but show that what happens in a small amount of time is pretty significant. And I wanted to start there in terms of rewinding 25 years, because what we've done with our plan, for our carbon action plan in Naperville 203, is kind of, in a way, sort of delicate in that we have a 25-year plan for 2050. So we're trying to predict what technology will emerge, what research will show, how the world will change, and where we can be 25 years from now. And that's really, really hard to do. So while our goal is to get to net zero by 2050, or hopefully well before, with some changes in the community and such, how we get there in terms of what our plan looks like today probably will look very different than we can even envision. Our plan will need to evolve. Our plan will need to shift. Our plan will need to change to make sure that we reach that important goal. But how we do that is actually less important, frankly, than the fact that we are moving in that direction and we get there. So the things we've set in our plan are based on what we know today. But we know that a year from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now, what we'll know just in terms of research base will shift things quickly, hopefully accelerate things for us. And the technologies that will emerge that we can't even predict will hopefully help us get there as well. So here's what we want to do tonight. We're really going to talk with you about our why. Why did we decide to create a carbon action plan? Well, why is that important to us as a school district? What's the purpose? Why did it even come to be? And I think that story is important because why we started this work actually tells a story of why we want to hit the target of 2050. We're also going to talk about our process tonight. We did have an opportunity to do a little bit of co-presenting at Indiana University, and they were very interested in how our process actually involved these guys. Often in school districts and in companies, we do things that don't necessarily include the people that it's going to mostly impact and mostly involve. And it's important to us that our students really led a lot of this work. We are going to talk about our carbon action plan itself a little bit tonight, but if you're interested in looking at that document, you want to see the nuts and bolts of how our plan exists right now, that QR code, as some of you have already learned, will take you to our plan. We're not going to walk through step by step what our plan is, because we think it's actually in a pretty user-friendly format that you can read. Our story is what we want to focus on tonight more so than the exact details of the plan. We'll hit on some of it, but not most of it. And then we're gonna end tonight with our future. So what's next? We have a plan now. So what? What happens now that we have a plan? And that's where we'll kind of leave you tonight. Okay. So a little bit about us, just in terms of who we are as a school district. Most importantly, we have about 16,000 plus students. We have 23 schools, but we actually have about 27 buildings. Our staff is about 2,500, give or take, in any given year, strong. And we serve about 32 square mile area. That's not just Naperville. Even families that have students in our district are sometimes surprised to learn. Our students, some of them come from Lyle, some of them come from Woodridge, some of them come from Bolingbrook, and some of them come from Warrenville. So although we are Naperville 203, we actually serve parts of some other communities as well. I got some wows, so that must have been surprising to some in the audience as well. So let me start with the why. And I want to break down a little bit about why we actually started this work. And it really begins, of course, with our sense of community and the important role that we as a school district with 16,000 students and 2,500 staff play in a community this size. We're proud of that, and we understand that the impact we have is significant. And so what we do, positive or negative, has an impact, or neutral for that matter. We're going to talk to you about our profile of the learner. Our mission is to graduate students that can move beyond education and be successful beyond us. Our mission isn't simply to have really great students, although you have them. It's to make sure that they can move past us and be successful beyond their high school years. So we'll talk to you a little bit about our profile of the learner. We'll talk a little bit about I want to talk a little bit about our philosophy around continuous improvement, and finally this idea of strategic planning, which is really what launched our plan. Okay. So this is an audience that we probably don't have to educate much on in terms of climate change and such, but a little hard to see on the left. Our plan really kind of took into account the things that we actually utilize in our district in terms of the emissions we produce from our facilities and our vehicles, those direct emissions that we create. And then sort of secondarily, the things that we purchase, the electricity, for example, that we purchase and the emissions that causes. So we did some work to create a dashboard that we'll show you in a little bit to get some baseline data, like how good or bad are we from a starting point. That data is public, and we'll show you that tonight. But we know that this work has significant impact in terms of helping our students and our staff and our community, just in terms of overall health. It's important to us that our students are available for learning. And if they have respiratory issues and have to be absent from school, that has an impact on their learning. So for us, it's about learning, but on the sort of outset of that, it's how do we make sure that our students can access the environment, that it's healthy for them in school, but it's also healthy for them in their community and in their environment, so that they can be ready to learn. Same thing for our staff. It's getting more and more difficult to have the staff we need, especially if they're not feeling well, and then to procure substitutes, to get bus drivers when a bus driver isn't feeling well, to get a teacher when a teacher isn't feeling well, and so on and so forth. And so the more we can do to make sure that our community is healthy, the more that those individuals within the community will also be healthy. So this work is important at many levels for us, and that's part of our why. Profile of the learner. We started, we've had a mission in our district to graduate students, and we have strands around that mission to make sure that they're graduating with the right skills to enter the workforce or postgraduate education, ready to go and to be successful. our mission had been in place for over 20, almost 25 years. And we updated that mission just this past year. Because just like we started with how the world has changed in the last 25 years technologically, the world that our students are entering is different than it was 25 years ago as well. So we engaged our community. This involves staff, community members, students, and others who were part of a process to really relook at our mission and ask us kind of a fundamental question. What is it that our students need to be successful when they leave us? And this is what the community came up with. These sort of 5 areas. That if we can graduate our students to be adaptable, to be communicative, to think critically, have a learner's mindset, and be global citizens, we will have fulfilled our mission so that they can move forward and be successful beyond Naperville District 203. This work for, in terms of building a carbon action plan, hits this directly in each of these areas. It's hard for me to read from where I'm standing, so it's probably hard for you to read. But we've highlighted something specific about how our carbon action plan actually ties to our profile of a learner. I just want to read these to you. So in the category of adaptability, one of the sort of sub-skills that's important for our students to graduate with is this idea of demonstrating flexibility and resilience in their thoughts and actions. And that's very alive as we think about carbon action plan and how to reduce emissions, because you absolutely have to demonstrate flexibility. The world's going to change around us each and every day and each and every year going forward. And this idea of resiliency, right? Any plan, it was Fernando that actually said this to me, if I can steal it right now, he said, what was that quote that Mike Tyson used to have about a plan? And it was,
everyone has a strategy until you get hit in the face.
right? Mike Tyson created resiliency, or lack thereof, I suppose, right? And when you have a plan, we know there's going to be barriers. We know there's going to be challenges. And it's important that with our students, we meet those barriers and we meet those challenges and we push through them. That we don't just give up and say, well, that's hard. We can't continue our carbon action plan anymore because we couldn't find funding, so forget it, we're done, right? So that's important. That's important that we model that to our students. That's important we give them the opportunity within our carbon action plan and the action steps we have to be adaptable. In terms of communication, in our carbon action planning, this idea of using communication for a range of purposes and audiences. So here we are tonight. We have a couple of our students with us to actually show you, demonstrate the importance of communicating to a variety of audiences. Like this isn't just the work of 4 people. If we're going to be successful with our carbon action plan over the next 25 years, it involves the entire community. It's not just a Naperville 203 thing. We hope the city comes along with us too. Critical thinking, understanding the broader context and proposing solutions that consider the effects on the whole system. Carbon action plan is one piece of kind of our district. We have a lot of things going on, but that we have to think about the entire context. And one of the opportunities we have within the carbon action plan is some very significant learning opportunities for our students, but also for our staff and for our community. So this is an opportunity to really think critically and demonstrate that as we're doing this work as well. Learner's mindset. As technologies emerge, as research continues to evolve, there's an opportunity there to really be learners along the way. Right? We already know we don't know everything. 2025. We certainly will learn as we go, and we need to stay open to that. And then finally, as global citizens, we know that this will ideally help this community, but it also has an impact much broader than that. And just the opportunity to talk to different audiences, just the opportunity to sort of engage with other communities and to share the work we're doing is already, in fact, having an impact. Because we've had other school districts and municipalities already reach out and say, hey, I heard about, tell us more about. And that sort of global impact is also what we're hoping to create in terms of just that domino effect. As I said, I've been fortunate to be in the school district for the past 30 years, and I will tell you the one common theme that I can absolutely tell you I've experienced from the day I started was this belief in continuous improvement. So our district doesn't just sit idle and let others kind of lead the way. We're interested in continuous improvement. And that sometimes is hard because we're constantly moving and changing, and it feels sometimes like we don't get a chance to catch our breath. But we believe that continuous improvement is a fundamental principle about our work, whether that has to do with how you teach mathematics or how you think about the environment around you. So this is actually part of our why as well. We believe in that strongly. And so even though we don't have all the answers today, it's important that we jump into this work and we learn as we go. So I want to hand this off to Melanie in a moment so she can tell you a little bit about kind of how this work got started. But before we go there, I want to just kind of reinforce one last point, and that's really how we got permission to get this work started. But a few quotes come to mind to start. Mike Tyson's not up here. But you might have heard of a fellow named Thomas Edison who once said, it's supposed to be good fortune, is what happens when opportunity meets with planning. For many years, we've actually been doing things that one might say, oh, that's good for the environment. But we didn't necessarily have a plan. We were doing little pieces along the way that maybe buildings and grounds thought was a good idea for the environment, or our transportation department thought that's good for the environment, but there was no cohesive plan. Warren Buffett once said, someone's sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. 25 years is a long time. And it could be easy to just say, well, we're not going to see all the fruition from that work. But I think this rings true because the work we do today in this plan will actually make a difference tomorrow and the day after that and 25 years from now. And maybe one of my favorites, Yogi Berra, Yankee, I'm a Cubs fan, once said, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else. And that's kind of how we have been in our district dealing with issues around climate. We've been doing things along the way, but we weren't quite sure where we were going until we had this permission that comes really from what we call our strategic blueprint. So Naperville 203, we have 4 strategic areas that are kind of our roadmap for our continuous improvement. That gets set by the Board of Education with their superintendent. Strategic focus 3, and we're really proud of this. Commitment number 1, not number 2, not number 5. Our Board of Education, when this blueprint was created, said, we need to identify and create a long-term plan to reduce the district's carbon footprint. That direction is very key for us because it prioritizes the work, it puts resources towards the work, and it tells us this is one of the most important things that we need to be doing. And so that gave us basically the charge to start this work and to come up with a plan that the Board of Education expected that we would bring back to them for approval, which just happened in March. I'll turn it over to Melanie to talk a little bit about that process. Right click.
All right, good evening. My name is Melanie Brown. I'm the Director of Buildings and Grounds for the district. I've been with the district for about 18 years. I started as a tech in the business office, and as people retired, I kind of just kept moving and was the Director of Finance and Support Services for about 5 years, and then offered some assistance in buildings and grounds and just never left. So this work started slightly before my time. We issued a request for proposal. We'll talk about that in a moment. But really, once I got settled in, we really picked up the pace on this project. I did speak to Nest on February 2024, right as we were starting that process. So some of you do look familiar. So thank you for having me back. Just another side note, I'm not an educator. I sit in an office a lot of the time, so I don't have a lot of time or experience in speaking to groups, so I'm gonna have to read my script a little bit. So I just wanna make sure I don't miss anything for you. But thanks again for having me back. We were lucky to have great partners in developing this carbon action plan. We had a consultant, we had our student advisory group, a staff advisory group, and then, of course, we asked for community input so that we can make sure that we are hitting all the points in our plan. So Karamita was our partner. To guide us in the process, like I mentioned, we submitted a request for qualifications for the carbon action plan and greenhouse gas accounting. We had 9 companies that reached out to us with proposals, and we interviewed 4 finalists. We were very excited to recommend Karamita to be our partner in this project. They are a multidisciplinary sustainability consulting firm based on evidence-based research and development, and they have all sorts of different experts on their team to advise us all on strategy, implementation, compliance, reporting, and assurance. As you can see here, Karamita has partnered with many municipalities, governmental entities, and educational institutions. Our consultant, Emily O'Neill, when she started this project with us, she was a senior sustainability analyst. And now, during the life of our project, I won't take the full credit, but she is a vice president for the livable city section of her company. So it just goes to show that this is important work, and the word is spreading, and people are wanting to jump on board. All right, and this is a picture of our fabulous and outstanding advisory team. Again, Emily O'Neill from Karamita was part of the team. We have staff representatives from different departments that whose actions will be impacted and will be part of this plan. So we wanted to make sure to bring them along. And then we had 13 high school students as well. Everybody brought their different expertise to the table and brought questions and expertise through their lens. We've met on Wednesday mornings, late arrival mornings, and sometimes on days where you wouldn't have had to go to school. Sorry, but Mr. Freundt always brought donuts and bagels for us, so that was good. And we did do the groups mostly in staff and student, so we could really have time to dig in. But when we were together, we were able to finalize our recommendations as a group for the Carbon Action Plan. It's a very special group. So next, I will bring Michael up so that he can share a little bit about himself and the advisory group and assessment. You want to first? Okay. Okay.
Okay, just have to make sure which one was which. All right, so I'm Michael Kim, and just this Sunday, I just graduated from Naperville Central High School. Thank you. 4 more years to college. Never ending. Anyways, this semester or during my senior year, I did a capstone. I focused on food waste and education on the educational system, which led me to get the Global Honoris Scholar. The two main focuses on the clubs that led me to the CAP advisory team was Ecology Club and Student Advisory. Student Advisory gave me the emphasis on how students should be leading, about how like we need to make the changes. And the Ecology Club just gave me some background information about how like the environment is important and like how we should protect the earth for our future generations. And then in the future, I'm planning on going to Iowa State, and I'm going to be majoring in computer engineering and hopefully using my skills in anything that's usable. And then I really emphasize on the CAP advisory team because just like Gandhi once said, be the change that you wish to see in the world. This is really important to me because I can't expect someone to make the changes for me. If I want to see changes, I have to do it myself. So that way I can't blame like, oh, this person isn't doing it right. I have to say, if I mess up or like don't do it, I can say, oh, it was because like I should have done this or I should have done better and improve myself. Continuous growth. So first off, let's talk about the advisory group. Before discussing about it, the advisory group was very important in gathering the expertise from students and teachers within district to create a plan that meets the expectation of like everything. Being a part of the advisory group opened up the opportunity for each of us to be part of something that could make significant changes to a community sustainability. And this is really important because everyone want to make changes, voices of people who can't be heard could say. Like my friend, he doesn't really like public speaking, but he was able to be part of it and be able to speak what he thinks. This was important to me personally, and I'm sure it's important to everyone from my team about how, because it is often that we get our voices heard. Our team started by conducting a feasibility study of potential reduction measures that research showed that most positive impact on the climate, such as composting, changing our vendors, recycling, and solar panels. Let's see. Once we prioritize reduction measures for our community, we set targets and identified actions to reach those targets. That was through budgeting, about seeing which vendor which part of our district is in control of it. And then, it's accountable for each of the actions that we identified. And then once that carbon action plan was drafted, we spent multiple meetings reviewing and revising it into a plan that was presented to this evening and to the board meeting in March. And then this was the timeline of how we did everything. So it first kicked off in May 2024. Our first plan was the greenhouse gas inventory to identify sources of emission, which serves as our baseline for measuring progress. Then, with the help of our consultant and advisory team, we came up with some reduction measures that became our focus during the plan's rollout. Some examples of reduction measures are the bus electrification and waste management, engaging students and the community in an ongoing effort. And we know that educating everyone will be really important as we are moving forward with CAP. We want to keep students involved because they play a key role in practicing. And I know there's so many courses and in the future that students will have a voice and will be able to help improve CAP in the future. And then next I'll go back to Freundt.
Okay, so as we talked about a little bit, community input was a major arm in the building of our plan. So of course that was very critical. As we began our work, we sought community input in the development of our action steps. We launched an online community input event to gather ideas and support of the reduction measures that we were initially going to prioritize. There were 4 focus areas in the community input event, and they were infrastructure and sustainable systems, transportation, student ownership, and an all-encompassing, all ideas are good ideas. The online event gathers 76 unique ideas that the community, from the community input, and we consider them as we develop the plan. This slide shows a couple of examples that were generated in the area of infrastructure and sustainable systems. So upgrading HVAC systems, lighting and insulation, and then renewable energy sources like rooftop solar panels. So as you go through our CAP, you will see that those are actually highlighted and in our plan. So our CAP. As Mr. Freundt mentioned, the QR code does bring you directly to the document. And this is where it really starts to come alive and is actionable. We won't go through each page as we mentioned before, but we'll highlight the data, the targets, what our work is actually going to be, and then the timeline. So this is someone's asking for directions. Okay. Okay, so this is a screenshot of the inventory dashboard, and this information was all gathered from data points in our 2018, 2022, and 2023 school years. So you may be wondering where's 19, 20, and 21. So 2018.
If we use your QR code, will we be able to see that on our phone?
The QR code is the plan. I'm not sure
that
that
was
was
just up there.
Yeah, this dashboard is on our website, but
Can
the
you put
QR
the
code,
QR code back up just real quick?
the QR code won't take you to the dashboard, but
Okay,
it'll take you to the plan.
okay, great.
If you go to our district website at naperville203.org
Okay,
and you search for carbon action plan, you'll land actually at our dashboard. So this is live on our website.
okay, great, thank you.
So 2018 is the start year. So this is kind of our baseline year before we really started doing any, we have been doing things along the way, but this was before we really started implementing our LED lighting, electric vehicles, and other items like that related to roofing and HVAC efficiencies and all of that. So that was before we started doing those in earnest. 2020 and 2021, of course, we left out because our operations were disrupted due to the pandemic. We will be updating with 2024 and really 2025 fairly soon because those years will have been completed. So what you see here on this first dashboard, it has a couple different views. So there will be total emissions, and you can, when you go into it live, you'll be able to look at it at specific facilities. You'll be able to take a look at it by year, and I believe also groupings based on elementary, junior high, high school. So you'll be able to compete with your friends and neighbors, so to see which school is doing better. But then you have also total emissions by source and year, so you'll be looking at all of it, in electricity, mobile combustion, natural gas, and refrigerants. So as you go into a different tab of the dashboard, there's more detail. So this is by facility, total emissions by square feet, and by facility, again, you'll see it by the 3 years that are featured. As more years get rolled in, more years will populate on here, and you'll be able to, again, sort from all those different parameters that you could sort from on the earlier pages. And then this one is specific to our fleet. In 2021, our partnership with our Drive Red vehicles ended, and we found ourselves looking for vehicles, and I said, this is a great win. Let's buy 6 electric vehicles. That was an exciting adventure. I drove all over the state of Illinois and bought one at a time. It was quite interesting, but I'm so glad that we were able to get that done. So you'll see the EV car, it's here. We were able to get that taken care of to get that ball rolling. So we have school bus, maintenance fleet, activity buses, and our driver ed vehicles here, which one's EV and which one is fuel. Okay, so before we get into the next portion of our presentation, I just wanted to note that each of the reduction measures and actions that you see in our plan was worked through thoroughly by both of our advisory groups, our consultant, and we compared and contrasted what we came up with based on the community input. Of course, our plan is to reduce emissions by 35% by 2035 and net zero by 20. Yep. You want to keep this here?
Hello, my name is Rakshita Ruparel. I am a junior at Naperville North High School. Of course, I was part of the CAP advisory team, and then I'm also part of the NEST Youth Committee. And I was also an AP Environmental Science student, so that's kind of how I got involved in, environmental studies and just all about this sustainability. So a key concept in our plan is the idea of reduction measures. These are strategies that shift from high emission activities to lower emission alternatives without compromising the original purpose. This slide illustrates a clear example. On the left, we see a diesel school bus, which is a high emission mode of transportation. By transitioning to an electric bus, shown on the right, we significantly reduce the emissions while still meeting the same goal, safely transporting students to and from school. Reduction measures like this are central to creating sustainable yet functional systems. So to effectively reduce our carbon footprint, we first need to identify which reduction measures would target our largest sources of emissions, while still being realistic for the district to implement. We evaluated the feasibility of over 30 scientifically backed reduction strategies, including financial, operational, cultural, and timing-related factors. From this process, we selected the 9 most practical and impactful measures. Of course, these changes can't happen overnight, and that's where actions come in. We've grouped these 9 reduction measures into 3 main categories: buildings and energy, transportation and waste. These areas offer the greatest opportunity for meaningful long-term impacts across our schools and the broader community. So another important definition is actions and how they differ from reduction measures. Actions refer to the policies, programs, incentives, and projects that enable the shift from high emission to low emission activities. In other words, they help make reduction measures possible. In our carbon action plan, each of the 9 reduction measures is supported by a specific set of actions needed to reach the targets we've set.
Kathy, how are we doing on time?
We're good.
Good?
Yeah.
All right. I only have like about another 2 or 3 hours.
I could listen to this all night.
Thanks. You might be the last one you're listening to us. I can't say this enough. I hope you can see like Michael and Rakshita, just in terms of, what they've shared with you tonight, why we are so proud of our plan, and most importantly, why we're so proud of the students in terms of how they developed, such significant parts of this plan. I want to just kind of wrap up with a couple things before I think we have time for some questions. And that is, when you go into our plan itself, if you're looking at it, whether it's now or at a later time, we also have kind of laid out for the community and for ourselves, frankly, sort of how our actions are going to be mapped out over those 25 years at this point, right? Like best guess. Here's what we can feasibly do and when. And so we have things kind of noted in terms of short-term, medium-term, long-term. We have cost breakdowns in terms of not so much like, here's how much we think it will cost, but because that will change over time. But we believe we can fit this in our current budget. A good example of that is instead of buying incandescent lighting, we're buying LED lighting. Like it's kind of changing one to the other. Current budget takes care of that. Solar panels might be something that we need grants or other sources of funding for. And so those things we've noted within our plan that way. We have timeline type things that are ongoing costs, things that might be one-time costs, and similar to in terms of actions. Like we can install a solar panel, and for the most part, that'll be good for long-term, right? It's not an ongoing type action in that way. So just a little bit about implementation in that regard. We also have, with our consultants' help, as well as some other agencies, begun kind of a short list of some other funding sources that we might be interested in engaging in when those things are available and such. And as you might know, some of these things dry up pretty quick. You got to jump on them, and other funding sources come online as well. So it's another area at which we have to continue to be up on and continue to be researching. So what's next for us? Here's some of our sort of short-term focus areas over the next few years. Education is the top one. And you're taking part in that already tonight. Part of our most important step over the next 25 years, frankly, but especially now, is educating our students, educating our staff, educating our community on what our plan is and where it's going. So education is really probably our top action at this point. In terms of energy efficiency, we are conducting energy audits, and we're also looking at some life safety assessments to determine where we can prioritize, for example, retrofits. That's already in the works. Solar energy, we're doing kind of a structural analysis actually right now in terms of where can we and can't we already put solar panels within our district, particularly on rooftops. You know, some rooftops may be able to already fit those. Some might need to be supported differently in order to hold the arrays on top of them. Electric vehicles and buses, Melanie already hit on this. We've already started that work. We already have driver's ed vehicles and a number of electric buses already in our fleet. And our Board of Education is committed to that as we actually replace buses. We have about a 7-year cycle. So we're replacing buses every year. That gives us an opportunity to get electric buses on board whenever possible. We already hit a snag. You may have heard the Joliet plant issue, right? So some things are already coming up that we have to be resilient, push through, identify other avenues in terms of getting things done. And then finally, in the category of recycling, waste, composting, we're really focused on vendor contracts, collecting some additional baseline data that isn't currently part of our dashboard that Melanie was showing you, and conducting a comprehensive waste study. Just Monday night, 2 nights ago, our Board of Education approved a vendor contract for recycling. So that was actually in our plan for 2026, I think, actually. And guess what? It's still 2025. So we are ahead of the game in terms of how that goes. So some things will move quicker than expected. Some things might move slower than expected. This is the nature of how a plan works and how things will evolve. So we'll be updating things as we go in that regard as well. In terms of accountability, as a community member, that dashboard will hopefully be one way that you can help hold us accountable as we add data to our dashboard to show how 2024 and 2025 and eventually future years play out in terms of total emissions. You can see our progress, and we're again looking
to not just hit those targets, but hopefully accelerate to those targets. But we also need a steering committee. So we are in the process of putting together a group of folks that are going to be really our kind of internal accountability team. Because Melanie's department at Buildings and Grounds is in charge of several things that the Carbon Action Plan has within it. But our Director of Transportation is also in charge of some things. And then we have other departments involved. And if there isn't a group that kind of oversees it all, we don't want to get to the point where we say, oh, Melanie, you forgot, da, 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 da. So we need kind of some oversight, if you will. And a group that's going to be in charge of looking at emerging technologies and current research as well as funding sources. Because Melanie can't do it all. We asked her to get solar on top of rooftops, that's her task, but she doesn't also have the time to do the research and find the funding sources. So that's what this committee will oversee, and we'll be looking actually for some community members to be part of that committee. And we already have students, one of them sitting right here, that's going to be on that steering committee as well. We want our students to hold us accountable, just like our community. So what do we need? We need community involvement. We've hit that, I think, hopefully enough. You've heard it. And we're glad you're here to hear our story. We absolutely want, but more importantly, need student leadership. Our students deserve that, and our students are craving that. Michael and Rakshita are 2 of the 13 that were part of the development of this, and all 13 were amazing, and there's lots more in our schools. They actually can lead efforts to, for example, change behavior in schools when it comes to recycling and composting. Right? It's one thing for a teacher to say it, it's another thing when a peer says it and models it and helps us with the barriers. They'll say, wait, don't put that on the poster, put this on the poster. Kids will read that. Right? We need expert partners. We're pretty good at educating kids. I say so. We're not necessarily experts in this field. We have some internal expertise, but we'll be looking for other organizations like Nest to partner with us to help along the way. We want this to succeed and to accelerate, not fail and stall. Okay? And then funding sources as well. That's going to be important. There's going to be some things that don't quite fit in the budget, and finding grants and other sources of information, other sources of funding that are out there is something that we'll certainly take help with as well. So with that said, that's our story. You have access to our plan, as well as the whole world does, on our website and our dashboard. I want to thank Melanie Brown and Michael Kim and Rakshita Ruparel, did I get that close? For partnering with us, with me along the way, especially our students. They really have brought this to life for us, and it's given us quite momentum about the importance of this. It's important to us as adults, but we know it's important to them, and they continue to tell us too. That's the fuel for this, for sure. So with that said, I'll end right there, and we'll take questions.
Plan. I mean, I think that you can all go to bed at night knowing that you're going to be responsible for preventing tons of carbon dioxide from going into the atmosphere. That's a legacy that you're all, leaving for all of us. And yeah, I could, like I said, I could sit here and listen to you guys all night because it makes me so happy to see this kind of progress in our community. And you're really a model for the rest of the community. I would like to, can you take some questions?
Sure.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Go ahead.
Thank you, fabulous presentation. Thank you, students, for your initiative and showing up. My question is there good data, do you have good data, is there a target for what the percentage might be between property tax funding versus other sources of funding? And the second question is, do you anticipate hiring additional specific personnel staff to implement this?
Well, the first question is a simple one. It's not a simple one. It's a short answer, and that is, I don't know. I don't know. We don't have the data around, property taxes and such and how that all ties. At this point, in terms of our short-term actions, we are proceeding basically with our current budget. So there is no, for example, forecasted change in property taxes or anything that as a result of what we're doing. We're fitting it within our means at this point. That's also a similar answer. Well, it's not an I don't know. We're not planning to hire any additional staff to do this work. This work fits under, Melanie and I have kind of co-led the development of the plan, but the steering committee is comprised staff-wise of folks that already work for us, that lead departments that have significant responsibilities that overlay these areas. And so we're basically asking of our staff to sort of shift, structures for decision-making and behavior, and not asking, for new or different or additional people to do that. This is really about changing what we do, not who does it.
Will energy efficiency results get earmarked for additional energy initiatives, improvement initiatives? Once you start to see the benefits of what you're doing, can you earmark that money to continue it, to put it into the budget for that, instead of using it for other purposes?
So we have had conversations about the concept of something like a green fund, right? So the dollars that we're saving based on efficiencies. We do have a lot of work to be done to increase our efficiency, so we would be able to utilize that savings very well, let's say. But as of this time, there's nothing set aside, but that is a concept that we're discussing on how we can fund this.
And ultimately within our structure, that'd be a Board of Education decision in terms of what gets funded for, how much gets funded for what. But it would be something that conceptually we would likely propose. And ultimately that would be considered, I would hope.
Chuck, good evening. And
Good
thank
evening.
you all for this wonderful presentation. Kathy, I'm in my lane here, right? I am working, my name is Jan Geiger, and I am on the Burke 5, whatever our group is called, for DuPage County, including District 203. And first of all, we may have some additional funding for you. And we're going to discuss that, I believe, on June 17th. I'll send you an invitation for the electric school buses. And what I would like to ask is, has there been any concern? You talked about the health benefits of a cleaner environment, especially for our young children. Has there been any discussion to focus on electric school buses for our youngest learners, our early education students? Because as the science tells us, it is when these kids are in this very vulnerable age group that ambient air pollution can do most harm, and that harm interferes, disrupts the learning process. Is this something that is on your minds or on the table? And could you elaborate just a little bit about, what are your thoughts along this line?
My first thought is you may have just landed on our steering committee. Or at least landed yourself in England. Let's put it there. But yes, we have had some initial conversations about that. We have a fleet of, I want to say 120-ish buses We are at 5 or 6 total electric buses. So that's a small percentage. At this point, we know that we can't, even if the funding was available, and even if we could logistically figure out a way to do it, we wouldn't go to 100% at this point, given that our buses have to, in some routes, go far distances at which, you know, the electric buses actually can't make. They can't make trips out of state, for example, in terms of how they need to be charged and such in terms of that. So we haven't necessarily said electric buses need to go to the youngest learners or the oldest learners or those kinds of things. Our director of transportation is the one that's creating strategy around A, how many buses can we actually procure? B, do we have what we're doing right now is we're actually increasing the infrastructure for charging. That's actually site improvements we're doing almost as we sit here tonight in order to do that. And then thirdly, as we get those buses on deck, the training that's necessary for our maintenance staff and for our drivers in order to operate them. So we're at very, very early stages that we believe we can accelerate if we can get our hands on buses, funding. I'm sorry, I don't mean to point at you like this, but I'm super excited about what you just shared.
I live in 203.
Yes, ma'am.
My son graduated from Ford. I shouldn't say this because he's going to really age me here, but he's from the class of 1999. Okay, and now hopefully my grandson will graduate in 2 years. Okay, so I'm going to try to get him up there and model after. I like what you guys are doing here, but it was our state's attorneys across the state of Illinois who petitioned our governor and our state legislators to create a more quality preschool education experience. And the reason they did, I talked directly to Bob Berlin about this because I didn't know about it until he told me. They did this because there is a direct link between school exposures and prison. And if a child has not learned how to learn by the time that he or she is in the 3rd grade, that child is more likely to present behavior problems. So now we're talking about the transactional costs here.
Yeah.
If we don't start focusing on our early childhood programs and making sure these children have the best opportunities. So yes, you and I are going to talk some more.
Yes, we are.
But, and we are working with, one of my colleagues is working with your director, is it Cindy or someone like that, to try to get one of your beautiful electric school buses at this event at the Regional Office of Education. And Kathy, I'll give you an invite so you can invite anybody who wants to come. I would have brought it, but we're still working on finalizing what room we're going to be in over there. But it is Tuesday, I believe that's this June 17th. And this is something that I want to work with you on because that's my passion, that early childhood population. We've got to work on cleaning the air up so that they can become better learners. But I so appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, and us, you. Thank you for what you're doing.
I kind of had a feeling we were going to be friends with the phone.
That's right. I got MapQuest directions to give you right after this meeting.
Joe, did you have your hand up?
I did.
Okay.
Just 2 quick questions. One is, can you give us a rough idea of what the cost was? And then 2, since you're dependent on other partners, like this obviously the city's energy contract, that's the biggest source of your emissions, I imagine. Are there things that you're doing as part of your plan to try to encourage the city council not to continue with the coal contract?
Yeah, so we're looking to develop partnerships to influence as well, right? So that's part of our, part of the honor and the privilege of being at a meeting like this tonight is to create these these partnerships so that we can also have a network that creates impact beyond just the work that we have within our plan, right? So we don't have a specific plan per se in that, other than we are in support of and we encourage our students to be very involved. We will be involved to the extent that we certainly can as well, because you're right, that contract is a very key piece of whether or not we hit our target long-term. And it's the reason why our 2035 target, you may have seen when Melanie spoke about it, isn't quite halfway to our 2050 target. It's the assumption that in 2035, the city moves away from coal. We will be able to accelerate our impact in terms of emissions to 2050, right? But without that, it will be very difficult for us to hit our 2050 target. Your first question?
For the rough cost of the plan?
We don't have an overall cost. We didn't cost it out because we know that a significant part of our plan will be able to kind of assume within our current budget.
I'm sorry.
But also,
I meant how much did it cost you for the initial investment to create the carbon action plan?
oh, gotcha. What was our basically, it was just our contract with Caramita.
Yeah, I think it was $45,000.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was nothing for what we got out of it. It was great.
Maybe one more question? Yeah, looks like
Students,
yeah.
what would you say for your generation is the most actionable task that you identify that your generation will actually do in your daily lives? In your daily lives, like, you know, day-to-day basis.
I mean, something very simple is just like carpooling or like walking to school, biking to school. I think one thing we were brainstorming during our meetings was having some days that are dedicated to just bike to school or like carpool to school. And you can get some like reward out of that, and students will be more like incentivized to like do that, because we see always so much traffic going through. And I know it's not just because we have a lot of people, there's issues in our in our area, but we have so many high schoolers coming in, parking their cars, and I just think that if you just bring along 4 or 5 friends, you're reducing those carbon emissions that are coming out of your cars, you know, so something very simple like that.
And then for me, I'll say definitely besides carpooling, I'd say like, I feel like each class mostly focuses on the use of technology. Yes, technology is really important, but like, I remember when we used to just like write, read, or do everything, but nowadays in all my classes, it's either online textbooks, using the Chromebook every day, using the computer, but then there's so many ways to like get off that and like to use like more hands-on experiences. If we were able to do that, or like doing that, then we won't even need to be using our Chromebook. For my senior year, I never once touched my Chromebook unless I really needed to for tests. But I would always focus on using, actually I wouldn't even write anything either. I just like show up to class, look, and then that's it. But like mostly focus on like, I know Chromebooks are important for like saving paper and stuff, and like preventing that, which is also, it has its pros and cons. Computers, if you use it, it uses power, which is from the coal. But then if you use paper, it comes from trees. So it has its pros and cons. But for me at least, I use neither. I just show up to class, just listen to the teacher. But doing those types of things, like preventing ways to like either reduce electricity or reduce paper, is like, as long as you're trying to reduce something, it's like helpful at least. You're at least trying something.
You can tell he just graduated, he can be honest.
I did want to point out that we have 2 school board members here, Mark Walensky and Joe Kuzminski, and we also had Amanda McMillan was here earlier, so great to see the support from the district leadership as well. So thank you so much. This was awesome. Another round of applause for